Authors have a superpower. We can manipulate time. Really though, because we control the final product that you're going to read, we can lay out future events early in a story, knowing they will happen before you do, but giving you hints along the way to give them credibility. I'm talking about setup, payoff, breadcrumbs, foreshadowing, what have you. All pretty much interchangeable terms with what I'm talking about today. Those amazing moments when a long hinted at event in the book reveals itself in a powerful way that sticks with you. The reveal or payoff is more impactful because it doesn't just come out of nowhere. The author has set it up. You have been primed to accept the reveal before it even happens. It's grounded in the pages long before. This can be a shocking reveal that wasn't spelled out explicitly, or it can be one that makes the reader slam the book shut with satisfaction and exclaim, "I fucking knew it!" I remember early on in my reading career, I often wondered how an author could think so far ahead as to know how and when to subtly set up reveals for the greatest payoff. One might assume to do so, you must be a so-called plotter, an author who plots out the entirety of the story or the majority of it before delving into the actual writing. That, however, is not the only way. There is a secret. The author probably went back and did it all after figuring out the reveal themselves. I did this heavily in both of my books, and it will be featured heavily in my third book, though that has more plotting than the first two. The way I write, sometimes called a pantser or gardener, is to unravel the story as I write it. I may have a basic framework, but I never have enough foreknowledge to accurately set up for satisfying reveals on the first draft. Every author can and should foreshadow when appropriate, regardless of writing style. It's up to you to decide if it's appropriate and it fits your work. There are many examples in Rise where I went back and deleted and rewrote entire chapters after discovering through the writing process the reveal I wanted. These were things the characters showed me through the process of learning who they are. This is my particular writing style, and it may not necessarily fit yours, but it's still something to keep in mind. If you go back, you can polish up that setup and make it more dramatic in the future. So, how do you employ this effectively? Well, I'm certain you all remember your elementary class on foreshadowing, right? No? Well, let me do a quick refresh then. Foreshadowing is a useful literary device used to increase suspense by creating a feeling of unease or curiosity. It hints to the reader that things may be leading somewhere or that they may not be as they seem. It's important to focus on the word hint here. Think of the conversation between Obi-Wan and Yoda. "Told you I did. Reckless is he. Now matters are worse. That boy is our last hope. No, there is another." Now, let's remove the hint part. "Told you I did. Reckless is he. Now matters are worse. That boy is our last hope. No, Leia Organa, the twin sister he unknowingly kissed. Force sensitive she is." My apologies for all the terrible voice acting. That's not my shtick. It's awful, but that was my best attempt at a Yoda voice and an Obi-Wan voice. Please don't leave the video yet. You're hiding the truth behind thin layers. I think of it like peering through the water. It's murky, so you can't make it out completely, but you know it's there. Maybe you can get a vague shape of it, which just makes you all the more curious about what the hell it is. When you finally pull it out of the water, you get a sense of satisfaction either through surprise at what it actually is, or joy that it matches your presumptions. Either way, it worked out because the assumption worked into the reality. The setup led to the payoff. I realized early on in season 8 of Game of Thrones, this is what upset me the most about the payoff reveal of Dany. There are plenty of discussions to be had on much larger YouTube channels about whether this was the easy way out to rely on cliches of inherited traits, but I think in general, people would have been much more accepting if it had been teased out longer. There weren't enough breadcrumbs to make a loaf, which made the meal feel stale. A large portion of the audience felt betrayed because it just happened too fast. A character's turn can upset the audience in a good way, but still feel real and earned if done correctly. A payoff that is not sufficiently hinted will taste like ash. It can burn up the entirety of the work you have done to that point. Be very careful about not rushing your reveal. That leads us into the next part, the payoff. This is the reveal part. While all that work leaving a trail of breadcrumbs lets the reader find the house in the forest. This doesn't have to happen in the same book, though I'd caution stretching it out too far because you do not want to discourage your readers and make them think that no payoff will ever come. It does have to happen. When it does, it should be tied to the events you put in place. It needs to make sense to you. If it's character related, tie it to their characterization. If it's part of the world, make sure it's consistent with your world building. Don't take a sharp turn just for the sake of the turn. A reveal inconsistent with your setup is one way to break the working formula, but that might be better than the other way to ruin your payoff. Don't fucking have one. If you provide the setup but no payoff, your readers again will feel betrayed. It's like lying to them. Speaking as a fan, I can say this is why I had so many issues with the latest Star Wars trilogy. At least to me, a lot of the setup from the first movie was abandoned and replaced in the second, and then abandoned again in the third. You have all these breadcrumbs leading to things that didn't pay off. There was a common thread. So you had the large payoffs that worked out, but there are many offshoots to that just went nowhere. And so you're setting up your audience in a sense for, we want this to happen, or this is going to happen, or I think this is going to happen. And it's not something that's addressed as, well, it went this way or this way. It's just dies. This happens a lot also in Game of Thrones. And it happens when you truncate works to squeeze in as much as possible, but you can do that without starting the breadcrumbs. Don't start something you don't want to finish. Otherwise, you'll upset your readers. I'm going to end this video with a personal anecdote from Rise, specifically a simple choice I made without thought that birthed an entire backstory from an offhanded comment by an alpha reader. This is your warning before some very mild and vague spoilers for Rise, my first book. So if you're leaving, please don't. But you enjoyed this video, please do the things that make the YouTube algorithm go like, subscribe, or comment, or do all three, because that would be amazing. In Rise, I single out the color of a ribbon one of my characters wears in his hair. This seemingly innocuous description had a strong impact on one of my alpha readers. So much so that she brought it up multiple times. So that ribbon means something, right? When are we gonna find out what that ribbon means? Well, I couldn't just say, I like the color. So I created one of the biggest emotional turns from that little detail. I went back and enhanced the language around the ribbon and further built out the breadcrumbs that would lead up to the reveal, which is further enhanced by later reveals. It played heavily into the characterization of this person and took them in an entirely different direction than I had originally planned. They remain a personal favorite character of mine in large part because of the setup and reveal I created around this silly little red ribbon. This is an example of kind of going both ways with foreshadowing. The initial detail was there, but even I didn't know what it meant. Once I had figured that part out, I backtracked and added the breadcrumbs to make the reveal make sense. I changed pieces of the characterization here and there to hint at it without giving it away. That later set up greater reveals with emotional payoffs. It was important to stay consistent with my foreshadowing, finding a balance between the build-up and the reveal. One thing I would suggest here is to ask your alpha readers and your beta readers, please look for this specifically. Look for foreshadowing that doesn't pay off. Look for reveals that don't feel like they fit. That is the time when you can go back and make tremendous structural changes to your work to fix it. And don't get upset if your readers don't see what you laid out for them. Keep in mind that what you are writing, you already know. Just because you get it doesn't mean they will. My name is Redbeard Flynn, or Mark S. Moore, however you know me. I am the author of Rise, Birth of the Revolution, Stand the Cost of War, a streamer on twitch.tv/redbeardflynn, and of course, a YouTuber here with all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave comments down below. Tell me about some of the best and worst foreshadowing you've read, seen, or listened to. I would love to see those comments. Thank you so much again, and have a wonderful day.